The lethality of their power is greater than ever. Their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. In earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
There is a common misunderstanding that by taxing the rich, it's going to help the poor. But again, it's more of a mainstream media and the establishment's agenda being pushed on you to believe this way and think that this is the way it is, and Obama wouldn't do anything to hurt the poor. Meanwhile, his programs are destroying middle-class families and bringing them into poverty, adding to the poverty levels, adding to the welfare rolls, adding to the food stamp rolls, adding to the Medicaid rolls. It's just a fact. There's no doubt about it. In fact, the perverse consequences of enforcing a philosophy of punishing wealth, those who create wealth, by redistributing their wealth to others in the name of fairness and equity and egalitarianism, is extreme. You have these results: high unemployment, not enough job growth. Who creates the jobs? Who funds the businesses? Who takes the risks that have been necessary for the growth of this great republic that is now a socialist country, the USSA? Now, if a small business owner has the ability and tenacity to succeed, and they continue to put roadblocks up, there comes a point where he just gives up, because it costs more money to try to stay in business than to close business. And that, unfortunately, is what's going on. These large corporations are sucking up all the smaller ones. You see it all the time. This has been going on for the better part of 30 years, actually. Major acquisitions in the last 10 or 20 years, with these large banks and large corporations and insurance companies merging, taking on other acquisitions in many industries. Now, these acquisitions actually decrease competition and increase costs to the consumer while they pool their resources for profit. This is pretty simple. Those that have the money will always have the money. So all they're doing is bringing more and more people onto the rolls of welfare and becoming a normalcy. Like Jim Cramer said the other day, these are normal levels of unemployment that we can expect. Now, President Warren Harding knew that restoration of an economy racked by a depression would be dependent precisely on the risk takers who, if they were allowed to, would be the engines driving the recovery. And that's the truth. We need people to take the money from the sidelines and bring it into the game. And the Depression of 1920-21 was the sharpest economic contraction in the previous 140 years, with industrial production dropping by 1/3 and unemployment doubling from January 1920 to July 1921. Automobile production fell an astonishing 60%. No bailout there. Okay, while wholesale prices cratered by nearly 40%. Harding took the advice of his Treasury Secretary, Andrew Mellon, who concluded that higher tax rates would drive capital underground or into tax-free securities, whereas lower taxes would draw capital into the marketplace where it could be put back to work. Harding cut taxes ferociously, bringing the top rate down from 73% in 1921 to 25% in 1925. He cut government spending equally aggressive, from $18.5 billion in 1919 to $6.4 billion in 1920. Then further to $3.3 billion in 1922. So he cut spending every year. The economy leapt forward, and by 1923 it had returned to full employment. So look, this is the whole point. In such a short time, there was a great recovery, but they don't want a great recovery. They want this endless recession, this continuous decline, this continuous, like Jimmy Carter called it, a malaise, right? That which ruined his presidency. But the economy is in a malaise. The economy will go forward if we reduce the tax burden and reduce spending. It's just very simple. I know it's hard to conceptualize that because you've been brainwashed to think that we need all these tremendous programs. But most of these things are duplicated, if not triplicated, by government programs. You can easily cut the fat off of the government, billions and billions and billions of dollars. Certainly the advantage would be that these people would go into the private sector, government reducing the tax burdens by having the economy work normally like a normal economy should. You see, these oligarchs want to control the economy and bring us into this like neo-feudal socialism, that they control everything and they become the lords and everybody else is a serf. In a nutshell, that's their goal. And it's going to take them, at the pace they're going, it's getting closer and closer. I mean, the spread over the last 50 years between the wealthy and the poor is at its widest margin at this point. And it's getting wider every year. So how much longer is it going to take before the government takes all your money and you'd rely upon on the state to survive? So in 1921, when the tax rate on people making over $100,000 a year was 73%, the federal government collected a little over $700 million in income tax. Sounds like a lot of money, right? Okay. And again, this was a tax. The income tax supposedly was to soak the rich, right? But somehow we ended up getting part of it. You know, they needed to help temporarily pay for the World War II. That was the lie. And it never went away. Withholding has been here ever since. We've been fleeced. This money goes to criminal bankers who create money made out of nothing and charge us interest for it. And that interest is our debt on every dollar they print. That's right. For a criminal cartel that are stealing money from us, and they're not even part of our government. The IRS doesn't even... They're a private corporation, just like the Federal Reserve Crime Syndicate. Every dollar that you pay in federal income tax, every dollar you pay goes to pay interest on the debt. Their little bullshit tax plans means that you owe, it means that you get back or credits or whatever else. It's all horseplay. It's all bullshit. It's all just a mountain of debt that rises and rises every year, and they spend more money to continue to make it rise because every dollar they print, they get interest on, so they love it. They love inflation too. Take away the standard of living. While wages are stagnant, prices rise. So in 1921, when the tax rate on people making over $100,000, only those, I mean, who was making, people making maybe $1,000 was a tremendous income in those days. That was a great income, okay? So whoever's making that kind of money was 73%. And the federal government collected $700 million, of which 30% was paid by those making over $100,000. By 1929, the federal government collected more than $1 billion in income taxes, of which 65% was collected from those making over $100,000. So obviously it actually did bring more money to the government. And then of course, the crash, and after that, and government used the Federal Reserve Crime Syndicate to fund all these programs and used our gold, took our gold basically as collateral, as payment, really, and the American people, their own lives and their livelihoods and their ability to pay a tax with the Social Security Act. This is true. This is what's happened. The Social Security Act was put into place not for what you think, to giving people security. It was a way to fund again another fraud, where the money that they use for other purposes is collected from our checks, and supposedly will give us income because several generations have seen this happen. But we know, people of my, anyone over 40 knows that they're probably not going to be anything. We even talk about it like a joke over lunch, right? Well, it's not a joke, because it really is true. They're killing it. They're destroying it. It's overfunded. There's too many people. Underfunded. There's not enough people. And it's true. The whole system is corrupt, and these social programs should have been temporary means. As far as Social Security, I mean, it'd be nice to have this benefit, but if you have been taking the $80,000 they've taken out of them, last time they stopped sending these notices, what you get from Social Security, remember? Last time I was like paid in $80,000. I would have done much better if I had the $80,000 to do with what I would invest it in or what I'd like to do, not in their little Ponzi scheme. So no, I'm sort of like against that. Those that are on it and living on it need to live on it. But there should be an opt-out. You should have the right to opt out of it. And that's, again, a libertarian point of view. In 1921, as I said, you had 30% of the government, and by 1929, 65% of the government's money was collected from those making $100,000. So they actually do end up soaking the rich by lowering taxes. Isn't that interesting? But they don't want that. They actually want to crush business. They want you to believe they're helping business while they destroy it. They want you to believe they're helping you with health care while they make it death care. They want you to believe that you have a right to choose when it's murder. They want you to believe that the world is to be one world, a new world order, where nations, oh, Bush said it better.
We stand at a defining hour. Halfway around the world, we are engaged in a great struggle in the skies and on the seas and sands. We know why we're there. We are Americans, part of something larger than ourselves. For 2 centuries, we've done the hard work of freedom, and tonight, we lead the world in facing down a threat to decency and humanity. What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
So turning it all around, with all of the reduced taxes and the increase in government coffers and all the money that the government collected from the wealthy as was supposedly to soak the rich, right? In 1932, the top income tax rate began at Coolidge's set rate, which was 25%. But President Hoover, dismayed by the enormous drop in revenue and resulting federal deficit, raised the top tax to an astounding 63%, dropping the economy and the country into the worst depression in history. By 1934, they're seizing the gold, ladies and gentlemen, of the American people. What are they going to seize from us now? How many more bailouts? How do we pay our bills? Rising inflation. Devalued currency. A rising stock market that'll burst again. And we'll be right back here. Thank you for watching Truth Talk News. I'm Howard Nima.